welcome back to Broadway Unexpected Special Guest Edition. We still have suggestion box open for ideas. Please send some. We need a new subtitle. I am very excited to say we have none other than actor and songwriter Casper Fox on with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Casper is best known for his work creating, as well as voicing Hades in his current concept album Stories to Sticks, which is amazing. Totally not promoting. Great to have you on today, Casper.
It's truly my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
Nice. So, kind of starting like the very beginning, if we're doing this in chronological order, so to speak, how did you first discover like a love for music, a love for songwriting? Did those two come at the same time, or did one come first?
Yeah, well, I was pretty late to the whole music thing. I was actually 18. So back in 2018, I was in high school. I was in like kind of like a music program as a pianist.
Hmm.
But it was mostly just because I wanted to like explore that a little bit more. At the time, I was a professional Counter-Strike player, and me and my team were about to get signed to an organization, and then my teacher had me actually sing at like kind of like a recital concert thingy, and I discovered I really love singing and performing. So I told my team, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I wanna do music instead. So I dropped out, started writing music, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah. How did you first get started in piano then? Because you had mentioned that.
Yeah, my family's is like a little musical. Like everyone, my dad, and my mom kind of plays the piano. So we had a piano in the house all the time. So I would like teach myself
Hmm.
to play piano, and yeah, that's pretty much yeah, just over the years.
Yeah. And did you find yourself starting in any sort of like particular style or artist, like when you were first teaching yourself to play?
I was usually doing more the simplistic stuff, mostly like children's songs. My
Hmm.
uncle had written a bunch of them. So I would always learn like it's very basic, like four chords, with a very simple one fingered left hand on the piano. Pretty basic stuff.
Yeah. And were there any artists that were like, as you got older, when you were doing piano, that, or especially as you transitioned to songwriting, were that were like a bigger inspiration to you?
Oh, big time. Adam Young, Owl
Yes.
City is my absolute multi favorite. I am like I like will die on the hill that he is one of the greatest composers of our generation.
Yeah.
Like I think he's incredible. His songwriting is incredible, and like Fireflies is arguably one of the best songs ever written. So
Yes.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
Adam Young definitely.
And then, because obviously, like Stories of Sticks is a very sort of like theatrical sound to it. So I guess my next question would be like, did you have a theater involvement at any point? Like, if so, how would you first get involved, or did it kind of just grow out naturally? More
This is
music.
really funny because I actually watched my first full musical in like as Epic in
Hmm.
like 2024. Other than that, I had never really gone to see it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
did not like musicals in theaters growing up, because I would always hear, and I would think that it's either like really old style opera, which me as a teenager didn't really enjoy,
Yeah.
or it was just like them singing the same songs over and over again. I was like, that's kind of lazy. Can you just write? But then I understood like motifs as I was like learning and stuff,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that's cool. It's a little daunting though, trying to write like 40 songs that all tell a coherent story.
Yeah.
So when I then heard that there's something called like song cycles and anthologies and stuff like that, I was like, oh wait, yeah, that could be pretty cool. So Stories from Sticks kind of became my approach to like both learning how to tell a story through songs
Mhm.
while also dipping my toes a little bit into musical theater
Mhm.
with the more anthology approach, so I wouldn't have the pressure of having to write 40 songs
Yeah.
all in one.
Yeah. Would you classify, like, because obviously I think you'd classify Stories of Six as a concept album, but would you
Mhm.
classify it as a work of theater then, or would you say it's more music rather than a work of theater?
I mean, like, I think that especially as we're like all like the internet grows and we as people grow and words kind of their definitions kind of start to like be a little foggy.
Mhm.
I think by the traditional sense, I don't think you can say Stories from Sticks is like a musical or a stage piece. It's more of a concept album, and I've tried to like really push that it is more of a musical anthology slash song cycle than it is like a straight shut through. I think that like with the way I'm going with the project, eventually it could be, but at its current state, definitely not a musical. No.
And I know obviously you said you're very new to theater, you did start in 2024, but what are your thoughts, if I would ask, about the like intersection of music and theater outside the obvious? Because of what kind of I know obviously Story 6 is not classified as a work of theater, but the two kind of intersect, I feel like a little bit, especially it's like this, because you do have that full storyline, even if it's contained.
Yeah. I mean, like, do you mean the like outside of the stage, or I
Outside the stage, correct.
yeah. I think especially with how accessible everything is now, you no longer need a big label to put out your music. Concept albums are easier to get to. They're not easier to write, obviously. It's still a tough thing to write, but
Yeah.
they're easier to put out there in a sense, right? And with especially with the rise of Epic showing that you don't need to have like theater directors and all this stuff, casting and all that. You can kind of take it on your own and then work with visual artists, animators, and stuff like that to get your concept album furthered, which might eventually lead into a stage play. But I feel like that stage plays is and something that's kind of like a chip on my shoulder is that I think stage plays are super inaccessible. I don't think like I don't have the money to just like, oh, there's like Hadestown is on Broadway right now. Yeah, let me just go to New York and watch that. Like I'm in Central Europe,
Exactly.
that's not happening. I
No.
can't also like, oh, it's in London, you can go. Not all people have money to go to London,
Yeah.
so like, I've always been a big advocate that like the accessibility is something that's really really important to theater and something we need to start working on. Pro shots are incredible, but not like people have been watching slime tutorials for generations. And when you have a legal one, because they always record like Broadway West End shows, they record it on
Mhm.
like a home camera for their archives. Publish that. That's like I hope we're moving towards where you'll get to be. You had to have like maybe like a musical theater streaming service or something
Yeah.
like that where you'd be able to or live streams. I don't know, but yeah, especially the accessibility is where I feel that this new generation of like TikTok musicals and animatics is like really pushing towards something
Yeah.
positive.
Besides, like, animatics and an idea of, like, a MT streaming service, do you have any other ideas? Just choice curiosity question of how to make theater and music more accessible?
I mean, I'm honestly, I'm not entirely sure how it works, like rights wise. I feel like that it should like I definitely think that the worst approach you can take is like start giving out a million different licenses to a million different things. I think that
Yeah.
you can literally just have one that's like, hey, you pay like a fee or like a percentage of the show or something to like, for example, if you want to do Hades Town in I don't know, Swansea or it's like some town, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're just like, okay, you go onto the website and then you apply, and then someone's like, okay, like, well, you just like give us like 20% of your profits, or give us like this is our show, give us whatever, cut us some slack, give us some money, and we'll let you put it on, and then you can kind of do whatever you want because that makes it so that Hades Town itself doesn't have to organize 500 gazillion different shows all across the world.
yeah.
They can just have this one and then have people have it in front of you. And in brand, I have a background in brand management, and one of the main things that I'm understanding is that they're afraid that they can't like quality maintain whatever. So if someone puts on a really, really bad Hades Town, then the Hades Town brand will be affected. But it is literally just fixed by the fact that you say, okay, well, this is not officially associated with Hades Town. It's like on a license or whatever. So spreading it out so that it's easier to maintain and maybe like putting the creatives a little bit more fun. But also literally like the easiest thing would just be release the archive videos that they have that's
Yeah.
just laying in a library somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. I get curiosity because you just mentioned the brand management thing. In creating stories of sticks, has your brand management background come into play at all? Have you found?
Big time, yeah. I learned a lot on how to like distribute, and I learned that like especially with because I was mostly in the a cappella like section of
Mhm.
of music where I was helping a few groups, both as a social media manager and all that. But I learned quickly that like you have to really maintain a good relationship across the different arts so that for example, if you treat a visual artist like really badly, then that's gonna come back to bite you eventually, right? So it's all about keeping it friendly, and then also I made sure that, for example, because Stories from Styx' main inspiration, not really music wise or anything like that, but it's just a concept with with hiring animators and the like having open auditions on like TikTok and Instagram stuff like that was primarily inspired by what Epic did. So I made sure to reach out to the teams like, hey, this is kind of what I'm planning. I just want to make sure I'm not like stealing anything or anything like that. And they were really nice. Saying, no, 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 totally okay. You can do whatever you want. Best of luck. So it's just really keeping a good, maintaining a good tone with everyone you work with, and especially when you have someone like, for example, the visual artists are probably like 70 to 80%. Like that's their how do I phrase this? It's like I'd say that the visual artists have such a massive impact on if a show does well online. Something like Epic, Stories from Six. Like I owe so much of Stories from Six's success to the visual artists, just because they're so incredible. Like they are so incredibly talented. But not only that, but also because they carry so much brand value as well. So if you see it from a business perspective, there's literally no bad literally nothing bad to hiring visual
Mm,
artists for your project. If you have the means, you should definitely do it. And just being sure that you like after that. So for example, if they get into hot water or someone is not treating them well, then I feel like you have a responsibility as someone who is so for example we there if there's a situation where I hire, let's say, Murchie, a visual artist, right, and then someone later on makes an entire video just tearing down Murchie as an artist, saying it's bad, then I feel like me as someone who's worked with Murchie would step on and be like, I don't really see where you're coming from. Murchie did this work for me and was absolutely, absolutely incredible. So just maintaining that healthy relationship with the people you work with is something that like really came into play
totally.
with the brand manager background.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long answer. Sorry.
No, no, you're all good. Oh my gosh. So then I'm kind of skipping around with my questions here, but how do you think then the power of social media promoted both stories of sticks and also the artists, the visual artists, the animators that you've been working with as well?
How social media like promoted them or
Like how sorry, like how social media has like helped you and the stories of sticks and the animators you guys been working with like promote their brand.
Yeah, it's kind of like a two-edged sword, or however you
Yeah,
say that, two sides of coin.
double
Because
edged.
on one hand, you get exposed to so many people. It's very very easy to have like one post blow up, let's say on TikTok or whatever, and have the name come out. But then, like especially with TikTok, is that the carryover between platforms is not that strong. So if you have a TikTok video that goes up, maybe you get like 500,000 likes on it, you'll get 20 on the next one. So it's like it's a very robust approach you have to a social media platform. But your name gets exposed, you get a lot of followers, and you make your name and project known, so that when next time they scroll across, it's like, oh, Stories from Sticks, I remember that. They might engage a little bit more with it. But on the other hand, I experienced a lot with Stories from Sticks that when I came out with the first concept EP back last year, a lot of fans and a lot of fans of primarily Epic were expecting Stories from Six to be Epic 2.0, and were really really nasty with their how they would go to TikTok, Instagram, and they would like I would get like even to the point of like this is so bad you should harm yourself, like to that extent, right? And yeah, it was nuts. So it's kind of a double edged sword. I've since left TikTok just because I
Yeah,
couldn't, for my
for
mental health. I
obvious.
had to
Yeah,
get out of that. But it's been like two sides of a coin. So you can get like it's very 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 like you can get great rewards from it. You can get great exposure from it, but unless you have the like mental fortitude of like an elephant, then it's gonna be very very tough to not have these like clash a little bit, right?
yeah,
And I'm just human, so I'm not really I was not prepared to deal with so much negativity, even if it was rooted in like something justified or just straight up hate, you know?
yeah. No, totally. So then, moving more to like the artistic side of it, how did you first come up with the idea for Stories of Sticks? Like, how familiar were you with Greek mythology? Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah, so I mean, I think everyone had their Greek mythology phase. If it was
Of
Percy
course.
Jackson or Age of Mythology as a game, you know, and I had one of those when I was a teenager as well. So I knew the fundamentals of Greek mythology and all that stuff. But then later on, it came back with my cousin is a voice actor in Denmark. He got to voice Hercules in the Disney movie. So I got like another like big mix mash with that. And
Mhm.
then kind of like from like later teen years, early 20s, I didn't really care much about Greek mythology. Then Epic again came back and revived that. And at the time, I was doing a reaction analysis of the musical, and we got to where Poseidon comes in, and I was like, oh, that sounds like it could be Hades. He's very playful. And then it wasn't, and the entire fandom decided that, oh well, Poseidon is now wed Hades, and that was all they would call me for like probably still to this day.
Yeah,
So after a couple of months, I was okay, this isn't going away like all in fun, right? So I like, oh, okay, this is all in fun. I should probably take a look at what like God I'm associated with now. What is this? And then I went on YouTube to just like see if I could find a video about Hades and like his highlights or feats of strength or something like that. And I couldn't find much. Only like Persephone was mostly there, and then a few like The messed up origins of Hades was a video also, but there wasn't really anything on one place. I was like, I wish there was a place where I could just go in and watch like the highlights of Hades, and then Stores from Sticks was called Highlights of Hades in the beginning. It's a very bad name, but it was called Highlights of Hades, and it was basically just going to be like everything he was involved with. So you can have like kind of like a biography in a newsname before Hades. And then I was like, okay, well we can make this like song approach. And then I learned that there's such thing as like an anthology piece, like Magnus Archive stuff for that. So I was like, oh wow, it doesn't have to be like sung through 1 to 140 songs. Like, okay, I'll try it and see where it goes. And then it just kind of became Stores from Sticks in the end.
How did you decide then? Because obviously, the first EP was Hades and Persephone. The second
Hmm.
one, you have Achilles, you have Sisyphus.
Hmm.
So how did you decide which stories you want to include them? Because there's a bajillion stories in Greek
Yeah.
mythology. We'd be here for a few days.
Yeah, like I mean, I wanted to do something that was like associated with the underworld in some capacity, right? So the initial thing was that I just wanted to tell stories and how like I interpret them essentially, and that became first like kind of centered about Source Mistakes, Hades, and Persephone is like the first three songs are kind of like more establishing, like Hades is born, he's an Olympian, gets the underworld, sets up the underworld, gets some character growth as like this young god, and then the other half would be a Hades Persephone like centered arc. And then I was initially not going to include Demeter actually, because I was under the I was propaganded into thinking that she was like just like some crazy mom who didn't want to, but then I had one of my friends who said like, it's okay if you don't want to, but I beg you read the Homeric hymn to Demeter and then make your decision. And I read it and I was like, oh my goodness. So, and then There's No Name came and I was able to hopefully tell, because Stories from Sticks is all about not taking a story at face value, understanding that there are a million sides. Like there's this side, and somewhere in between here is the truth. We'll never truly know that. And that's kind of how I approached that. And then I was like, okay, part two, I want to do a little bit more world building, because the great thing about Stories from Sticks is that it doesn't necessarily have to end. There'll always be stories to tell. So I could probably write Stories from Sticks for the next 20 years if I wanted to. So I was like, okay, let's do some world building. So part two is going to be called The First Echoes. And Echoes in Stories from Sticks is essentially just miscellaneous stories. So we have, as you said, Achilles and Thetis. We have Sisyphus, Theseus and Pirithous is also going to be in there. Tantalus's punishment is going to be in there. Eros and Psyche is going to be in there. So like all these miscellaneous stories where I'm like, I probably couldn't or don't want to fill this into like give it its entirety of its own part of
Yeah.
Stories from Sticks,
Mhm.
but I still want to tell the story in that sense. So that's just kind of how I like landed. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, kind of, you had just mentioned, you were hesitant about including Demeter, but then in each of the specific stories, obviously, there's so many different interpretations of these
Mm.
stories and what to include and what not to include. So, how did you decide in these six stories what to keep, what to leave out, whether for this is a little too dark or this just doesn't fit with my
Mm.
interpretation of it? Like, how'd you figure that?
Yeah, cause like, I wanted to see if I could figure out a way to, instead of it being either Persephone is like super mega fully willing to go to Hades, or she is like fully abducted, cause those are like polar opposites,
Yeah.
right? So I wanted to see if I could find a way, because I feel like that in both those stories, Persephone isn't really given any agency to
No.
like, what does she want to do in that
Yeah.
sense, right? It's always like decided for her. So I included in Crossroads, which Tegan Early performed beautifully,
Yes.
this like crash out, which is basically like, oh, I feel like I feel like I'm frozen. And this Crossroads is essentially her getting to terms with the fact that she's about to like, what can she do here? So she doesn't like people are saying Source Mistake she goes willingly, which isn't entirely true. She's not kidnapped fully either though. And it's, if you really dive into the lyrics and see like the visuals we got, is that she kind of has Crossroads is kind of a therapy session for her, where she's like, I'm gonna take agency in the situation that I'm in right now and make the best of it. So she eventually decides that like, okay, like atop, she was like kind of seen as like a prize kind of by her mother. She was kept in this garden and like was defended from every man that ever wanted to court her. And in the underworld, she at the start maybe doesn't get to make 100% a decision if she goes or not. But in the agency, she decides to reach out to Hades and it's like, okay, I want to try to have like my own say in what happens. And then what I think the beautiful irony is that she kind of lets her get taken then in the same manner, but it's more complicated than that. So when she then arrives and then eventually becomes in a lot of stories she becomes even more powerful than Hades. Even like in a lot of interpretations I've read, Persephone outdates Hades. Like Persephone was a thing before Hades in some myths. So it's all about getting a way to balance it. But I also wanted to see if I could leave it open to interpretation, that some people might see she was taken, some people might see she went willingly, some people will see them in love. That I wanted to see if I could represent as many sides of the story in like
Yeah.
songs and visual. And
Yeah.
I hope that I accomplished that because I've seen a lot of different
Totally.
interpretations of Crossroads so
Yeah.
far.
And do you intend to keep that sort of like gray area going forward as you continue with Stories of Six?
Yeah, I want people to be able, because there's this like really really strange tendency, hive mind, that it seems to where that like once one person, who no matter what it is, one person will say something and then that will just be the truth, nothing else. Like there will be no. I'm trying to see if with Stories from Sticks people can use a little bit of critical thinking so that what they see face value isn't everything to it,
Yeah.
you know.
Totally.
And with the songs, I want to see that like these are like biased perspectives from the. So for example, Sisyphus is, for lack of a better word, a dum dum. Like he is not a great person, right?
Yeah.
And that is reflected in the stories that we're told with how he lived and how he tricked the gods. But Sisyphus' story is told from his POV, where he's like, oh well, I didn't really do much wrong. I just kind of was like smarter than the gods. So, and that's a very bad. Like, what do you mean? That's not what happened, right? So yeah, that approach shines through so that people hopefully will be like, well, I'm not really sure about that one, you know?
Though it's interesting to see because I feel like that whole idea connects to like this concept of there's this pretty famous TED talk called The Danger of a Single Story,
Hmm.
and how like you can't ever, there's always more than one side to it. I think the narrator literally says this in the first EP, like there's more than one side of the story, not
Yeah.
everyone, blah blah blah. Which actually leads me to my next question. What was the role of the narrator like in, especially in the first EP? Like how did that
Yeah,
first come
so
about?
I was kind of like, if this is an anthology piece, I can't just throw people into the action. Like that's gonna be feel weird. Like, cause like if you just saw the big Titanomic award, everything like that, and then all of a sudden Hades is singing a power ballad, that doesn't really make sense in my head. So
Yeah.
I wanted to give context clues. So I added the muse, which is funny because Nenosine kind of isn't a muse. She's the mother of the muses, but isn't
Yeah.
a muse. But she's the tightness of memory, and I thought that
Yeah.
that fits well.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of to give context. So what I'm doing is that I'm trying to go through all the muses. So for part two, Calliope is the muse, the narrator, and yeah, it's like one of my favorite roles in all of Stories from Six, and like both Kanaya and Lorelai, who are respectively muses, did such a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Like they're so great. Their voices are just so crisp. Like I wish I had their
I
voice.
wish. So then what was the casting process like? Because you had mentioned you did the open auditions, kind of like Epic, but what was it like trying to like sift through those thousands of 5,000 posts, trying to find who would best fit? You know, you have an idea in your head, and
Yeah.
then
And the crazy thing is we were probably in the thousands because a lot of people auditioned via Instagram and TikTok. I had like 814 auditions on email that I have to go through. So there was a week where I would wake up and then shift through emails for like 18 hours a day and go straight back to sleep. It was nuts. But what something that I learned is that like people love being a part of something. And I think that like I'm just like full transparently from a person, like from a project view, that means okay, your project gets like more talented people audition, which means your end product essentially will get better if you find someone very good. But also on the plus side, is that if you hold open auditions, that means people feel like they get to be a part of it, which also means that your musical is going to be talked about more. There's going to be more content that you don't have to produce to get out there. That's not to say that like you should put it out as a fake and then cast someone entirely different. That's kind of a like that's not really ethical. Yeah, that's nuts. But yeah, so it was long. But I had especially like with auditions, and it's something that I tell everyone that asks me this, is that the audition is not necessarily how good you are, it's just how much you fit the image
yeah,
of the casting director, right?
yeah.
So I had incredible auditions. I had so many that made it to like final callback stuff for that, and I was like tearing up having to like turn down some of these people because they're so
Oh,
talented. But
yeah.
I'm very pleased with the cast that we got. I like has names on it that like I couldn't even dream would. And then I've gotten to meet so many cool people, and I have a lot of friends from the cast now as well, and I adore them. So it was a lot of work, but in the end it was so worth it.
And all were was every single role cast through open auditions, or were there any that were pre-cast?
So obviously Hades was precast because I
Well,
was like,
duh.
I want to be a part of it too.
Yeah, yeah, I would hope so too. Yeah, yeah,
There were a couple that weren't had. I had Radamanthus. I wrote specifically because I live in the Czech Republic and have been living here for 5 years. And I wanted to kind of pay homage to the country that like I've been living in and has been like my start to content creation and music
yeah. Mhm.
professionally. So I wrote it for my buddy Patrick, who is this like locally I know him like he's like a Czech big jazz big band singer, and he's so funny because he is the like least offline person ever.
Yeah.
He he like I text him like, hey, I'm writing this like concept album musical thing. Would you like to like audition for it? And then he like responded like, yeah, sure. Do I have to wear costumes? So I thought it was like I said, it was very fun. And then
Oh my god.
when In the Underworld now hit 1 million streams, I texted him like, "Hey, grats on 1 million streams on In the Underworld now." And he was like, "Oh, I didn't even see. I guess many people want to know what In the Underworld is like." For some of it was very funny. So
My
that was
god.
predetermined because I wanted like a Czech singer, and he was like what I had in mind. For Demeter and Persephone, because I initially asked Jennifer Glotzhofer, who's the voice of Demeter in Stories from Styx, to demo for Persephone, and she did, and that was kind of like the direction I was headed towards. This was back when Demeter wasn't. And then I got to meet and chat with Tegan Early, um, got to learn that like she really resonates with Persephone and stuff. Like that, and then like I was like, it could be crazy if like she would want to voice Persephone. So I approached her with it, and she said yes. And then I kind of like talked to Jennifer, and in the end, I feel like Jennifer and Tegan's voices approaches are so good and so similar, also so powerful. I genuinely believe that had I put Tegan as Demeter and Jennifer as Persephone as well, they would have done still such a fantastic job. But it's just when you're working with such great versatile voices, it makes my job as a casting director easier, right? But in the end, Persephone, Tegan, and Jennifer Demeter were also kind of predetermined. I didn't do any open auditions for that. But every Olympian, every judge, and the muse was open, yeah.
That's fun. Did you find yourself, as you were writing it, wanting each character to have like a distinct style or voice, or was it more based on the overall theme and each song individually?
Yeah, they pretty much based on each song individually because like, 4 3 of the part 1 songs take place in the underworld, and they all like one is like a pop power ballad, one is like a little jazzy number, and then you have My Persephone, which is like a duet piano thingy majig, and that's very different stylistically, right? So I kind of just wanted to like, what am I trying to accomplish with this song? What kind of feeling do I want to leave here? And with Shades, or Shadies, as some people are pronouncing it. I wanted to,
Shady.
yeah, I wanted to really make sure that people would feel an impact that Hades isn't just like this black and white character in story that's like either romanticized to death or the villain of the story. He's deeper than that. He has thoughts of his own. And for In the Underworld now, I want to be like, okay, building montage, everything's being established, and I feel like this like jazzy approach to a song worked well, and then My Persephone just had to be really heartfelt. So I used a song that I that I wrote for someone I had a crush on who ghosted me. Yeah, it was very funny. And that specifically with My Persephone, that's funny because it was not supposed. Persephone wasn't supposed to sing in it, and then Tegan and I were talking at some point, and she was like, "Oh, well, I mean, we can do like we could sing the duet." And I was like, "What duet?" She's like, "Yeah, the duet." And I was like, "Well, My Persephone isn't like Persephone doesn't sing in that, but she probably should." And then Tegan wrote the best verse for My Persephone. Like that's all her writing, and she was incredible. And she sang it like I remember her sending it to me as voice note in the car, and it was just incredible. She is incredible, dude. Like
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I gotta ask again, I feel like this might be a little bit an obvious answer, but overall, did you find yourself drawing a lot of inspiration from Epic? Obviously, kind of set the stage, but also make its own work.
I mean, honestly, musically, no.
No,
Musically, I think
totally.
Stories from Sticks and Epic are very, very, very different. The only thing that I like took inspiration from or like stole from Epic is like the approach to online auditions and
Yeah.
animatics, which I learned was not exclusive because then I recently watched like some Hamilton animatics and stuff like that. So it's been something people have been doing for a hot minute, but I specifically took inspiration from Epic to like do that. Yeah.
No, totally. Did you this is obviously in subjective terms.
Mhm.
Was there like was there like an easiest and hardest song to write that's been released thus far, or did they all kind of
Yeah. Easiest song was probably in the underworld now, I think.
Yeah, it's so
A
jazzy.
lot of the Stories Mistake songs are actually older songs that are already written that I kind of repurposed a little bit, which is
Mhm,
why like it came out relatively fast, part one, because a lot of songs were already like written or
mhm,
you know. And In the Underworld now is a short transition song that I just kind of wanted to like, okay, we're done with Hades' kind of backstory. Now we're getting into Hades and Persephone.
mhm,
And I love rapping, and when I write, I like write that like so I wrote in the Underworld now kind of at first, like I approached it like, okay, I'm writing it as a rap, but it is gonna be a song.
yeah.
Which is why like a lot of the like words that rhyme are I'll get you square out there, there's not the hell you have behaved up there. Like that was to put like in a rapping person. And that took like I did that on stream, like on Twitch, like took like a couple hours, you know? It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hardest one, try to fit a 10-year war into one song.
Oh,
Titanomachy was
Dynamically.
kicking my behind for so long, my god,
Yeah.
yeah. But made it work.
So, kind of transitioning more to like the future and whatnot, do you obviously Story 6 is going really well, but do you what I guess the question is like what is another idea for a show that you would hypothetically like to write in the future if you had one?
Oh, I have been like on and off, been chilling a little bit with so I'm from Denmark, born and raised in the culture, and we were told like Norse mythology stories growing up and stuff like that. And my absolute favorite story was the one about Baldur's death and the beginning of Ragnarok. And I think it's a
Yes.
beautiful story. I think that a person like Baldur, like someone who's like loved by all and liked by all and stuff like that. It's like that is a person I aspire to be. Someone that everyone just like, you know what, Casper, he's a good guy. You know, we don't want anything bad. You know, I think that's great.
Yeah.
That's dope. So I've been like tinkering a little bit with what a Baldur musical, which would be like a full that if I ever do that, I would like make it a full stage play, like full musical
Yeah.
proper one, 30, 40 song stuff. It's not something that I've been because I also like again, I'm just a man and I don't want to
Just a man.
yeah, I won't be having 50 million projects overall, so it's kinda, like, on the
Yeah, yeah.
back burner, but that's something I'd love to do at some point in my
Valid.
life, yeah.
And are there any other dream like, obviously, Tegan and Jennifer and whatnot are obviously,
Mm.
amazing, but are there any other dream actors, like, do you would like to have on another project of yours going forward?
I'm gonna throw a lot of obscure names here. I would absolutely love to work with Patrick Page. I think he's incredible. He would like,
Yes.
yeah, I think he would be dope. Danny Mata, if you know who that is, I
Yes,
would
it's a
love, I would love to have Danny Mata in Stories from
yeah.
Sticks at some point. I think that'd be so fun. I think he's hilarious, but like I've like all of a sudden, him and a bunch of others, I don't remember who it was, but they released a Has Been cover and got to hear Danny really with the vocals. I was like, wow, this man can sing. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
he has like perfect hair. He's like handsome. He can sing. He's funny. That's not fair. Let's work together. You know, it
That's
was
not fair.
good. Yeah. I'd love to have Jay. Jay,
Yeah.
any like
Okay.
I've gotten to be really close with a bunch of the Epic cast members, and I like
Mhm.
honestly, there's no Epic cast member that I wouldn't love to work with. I think they're all
Absolutely.
just crazy talented, and I've gotten to meet a lot of them over the past couple of years, and they're all just fantastic people.
Yeah.
Like, and Adam Young,
No, of
but
course.
that's probably
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
Do you have any other, like, dream writer you would love to collaborate with on an album? Obviously, you mentioned Adam,
Mm.
Jay. Yeah.
Oh, dream writer. Um, Ooh, that's a tough one. A dream writer. I mean, I think it would personally be really, really awesome to work with Taylor Swift. I think that'd be pretty sick. Yeah, but honestly, I think like on one hand, she is an incredible writer, incredible
Yeah.
singer. She's dope. But also, my songwriting teacher, Grace, is a
Mhm.
massive fan of Taylor Swift. And it'd be
Yeah.
really funny to just show up to listen when they'd be like, "Do you know who I'm working with?"
Yeah. Wait, I do have to ask, and I might cut this out. Does your when you say Grace, is your songwriting teacher Grace Yorchuk?
Yes.
I used to work with her. Oh my
Oh,
god.
really? Oh, she's
Yes,
awesome. She's the
no, she's
best.
amazing. I love Caesar so much.
Yeah.
Anyways, so kind of wrap up a little bit here. I know obviously Stories 6 is meant to be an anthology, but is there any universe, any alternate reality where you see it being a stage production, even if you have, in either America or Europe? Or is it
Yeah, I mean, like, currently right now I could see part one and part two being like these like mini concerts, like almost like workshop stuff, but
yeah.
there's still anthology approaches, so I don't know how that would work on a stage. But for like a full proper stage play and stuff like that, I will say Part 3, probably, yes. Because I'm trying to write, what I'm currently also working with Grace on, funnily enough, she's helping me, is that, part 3 is gonna be a story centered on Hades, Zachary's Milanoe, and kind of like an adopted father, adoptive
Yeah,
kids type story. And that's gonna be played out kinda like over, like, 10, 20 songs, something like that, which would be like a proper stage play. Not like
yeah.
without intermission, so similar to like
Well, yeah,
Six and
1
whatnot,
act,
right?
but
Yeah.
yeah, totally. And then, so kind of wrapping up a little bit here, but what is one word of advice you would give to anyone who's aspiring to be a songwriter or create a project like this?
I will say, uh, oh, that's a good one. God, I'm trying not to swear.
No, you're fine. We'll just edit it out and post.
I would say, um, I'd probably just say make friends, not enemies. You don't know who you're gonna be working with or out there. You don't know if like whoever you have a feud with on week one is gonna be like Jeremy Jordan level in 2 years. Make friends with enemies and never ever underestimate the visual artists. They are the most important part of everything and anything. They make your content accessible. If you have the means, your number one priority should be investing in the visual arts.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Truly my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll see the rest of y'all next week.